let's have the mindset that all of us are special. All of us are gifted with certain unique qualities, right? We have to discover what those qualities are. And also, the abundance mindset says that the glass is half full. The community generally is very supportive. And here's another very interesting phenomenon. In the age of AI, people crave authenticity.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ivan. It's been an honor to be invited, and I'm really, really looking forward to our discussion.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm super excited because lately you've been literally everywhere. Every time I open up LinkedIn, you're one of the first ones, to pop up. And I know you have so many things to share. So I'm very interested in this conversation because you're one of the guests that I really wanted to have you because we both connect in terms of a personal level. So we've interacted a few times, but also we are colleagues. So we speak more or less the same language. We've been through similar challenges, both in personal life and professionally. So I'm really looking forward to get your thoughts and insights.
Wonderful. Yes. Can't wait to get started, Ivan. This is going to be good.
All right, then let's kick it off. Would you mind telling me a little bit about yourself, your background, and what's your story?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So a little bit about myself. I was born in India. I did my early childhood in India. And then my family, we moved to Tanzania in Africa. And I did my high school in Africa. And then I came to the US for my college. And I initially started off in computer science. That's what my bachelor's degree was. I loved computers, while with my brother in high school, we used to play a lot of computer games. And so at that time, it was like, oh man, computers is where it's at. And so I went into computer science. And then I realized that I like to be closer to the customer and closer into the marketing and the strategy, that side of the businesses that I've been with. And so I slowly pivoted from engineering into marketing, and I've loved it. I find that marketing is something that teaches us to almost be like people in an aircraft control tower, where we see all the planes landing and taking off. And when things are humming well, people don't even realize that the aircraft control tower exists. But when things don't work well, it's like, hey, what happened in that control tower? So it's been an amazing journey. I really, really love marketing, product marketing, and I can't wait to tell the audience more about this.
All right, let's take a step back. So you said, Asia, Africa, US. What is it like and what kind of learnings did you bring from all this past experience and traveling all over the globe?
Yeah, travel, I think it really is a way to open our eyes and our minds to different ways of thinking. I'm fortunate, as you mentioned, I've had the opportunity to not just travel, but also live in Asia, Africa, and North America, 3 continents, amazing places. So a couple of things that I've learned. From my life in Asia, I learned to have a really strong work ethic. And that is so important, whether we are in marketing or engineering or finance or any job, right? Like, I think a strong work ethic is something that is the foundation that helps us build our structure of our lives. And so that was something that I really learned from my living in Asia. Then when I moved to Africa, I learned so many other skills. Most of all, I would say, is the ability to be resourceful, right? Because there are so many constraints that we have, many things that we take for granted in, let's say, in Europe or in the US, we just don't have in Africa, right? And so how to operate and be resourceful in a constrained environment. So that was probably one of the biggest lessons that I learned from my time in Africa. And then now I live in North America, in the US, and it's the land of opportunity, So this has really taught me that dreams do come true, As long as we can dream big and have that work ethic and be resourceful, there's almost nothing that we cannot achieve. So anyway, these are some of the important lessons that I've learned from the different continents that I've lived on.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. What about marketing? You said you did all these transitions. Was it something intentional for you? So did you have already an idea that you wanted to go into marketing? Did you have an expectation of, what marketing is versus what it actually became once you got into the weeds? How did you end up into a marketing role?
Yeah, so as I said, it was a bit of a journey. And to be honest, it was not 100% planned, right? Sometimes we look back at our lives and we think that, oh man, that was the strategy, right? When I was born, I was like, hey, this is, what I'm going to be. At least in my case, it wasn't like that. So, like I said, when I started my college degree, I wanted to be a technologist and I loved computers. So I said, hey, I got to do computer science. And the more I was doing it, I realized that I was very good at it, but it was not my ultimate passion, right? I love technology, but doing software, I'm good at it, but it's not my passion, right? And so that's one important lesson that I learned, Ivan, that in whatever we do in life, right, if we pursue our passion, then it's almost like it's not even a job, right? It's like, man, this is what I think there's a concept in psychology called flow. I think there's a researcher, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, he coined the term flow, which is that optimal state where, something is challenging enough that we're like, man, I want to crack this. But it is not too challenging that we're like just burnt out, right? It's that optimal state. And that optimal state he calls flow. And that flow is something that we can achieve in whatever we are passionate about. And for me, I realized that doing computer science, I was good at it, but it was not my passion, right? And so it wasn't giving me that level of satisfaction. And then as I was talking with other colleagues around me, I talked with people in sales, I talked with people in marketing, I talked with people in finance, legal, different departments. I really got really attracted to the folks in sales and marketing. And, the thing that got me really attracted to that, Ivan, is they were close to the market, like how the business is going to progress, what is coming down the line, right? Like in software, what I was doing and my team, initially, we were writing some software which was mainly for things that have already been sold, but I wanted to be at the leading edge. And so that's really what got me and the bug into me about, pivoting into marketing. And it's been an amazing journey. It's helped me through the ups and downs, right? Even though this is another important lesson. When we find our passion, it doesn't mean that everything is rainbows and cupcakes. That's it, our life is set. No, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. It's like a roller coaster, right? You'll have great days, you'll have some, not so great days, but you're willing to take all of that, right? Because that is your passion and that is what you're really enthused and energized about. And so that is the thing that got me interested in making that pivot, and I haven't regretted it. It's been an amazing journey. I've learned so much. I've had the opportunity to share my knowledge with the community, and through my books and my content, I try to give back, ultimately because I feel whatever we have learned, there's a saying, right? If we have seen far, it is because we stand on the shoulders of giants. And I'm so honored, Ivan, you have been one of my guests on one of my shows. And so people like you have helped me become what I've become. And so I just want to give back to the community.
Amazing, amazing. I know also going back to the flow, I know it can be also defined as zone. For instance, in sports can be defined when you're in the zone, you just things are happening without you noticing or needing to actually think about it. So it's like a positive reinforcement of that feeling. Nitin, as you're talking, I'm opening up, so many questions, so I'm trying to not lose track of it. But I wanted to get a little bit more into, so now you're in a situation where you're in a senior position, you have a ton of experience. I'm sure you have a very rewarding and satisfying job. What made you decide to start working on a personal brand? So I'm trying to understand, was that a specific moment in time, or was it something that happened gradually? And also, why did you wanted to start exploring outside what's the typical or the classic job that someone would think of?
Yeah. And, you brought up a very important point, Ivan, and we should dive a little bit into this, which is the importance of a personal brand. There's a saying that we may have heard, which is our network is our net worth. In other words, our network is really what helps us accomplish things as professionals, whether we like it or not. And, sometimes it's about what we know. Sometimes it is about who we know and making those connections. And so that was something that had me thinking that I need to collaborate more, right? Because everybody, all of us, right, whatever we're doing, we have a kind of a ceiling if we just focus on mastering things ourselves, right? We experiment and maybe we do some successes, maybe we have some failures, we learn. but we hit a ceiling. To really grow beyond that ceiling, what I've found is we need to collaborate with other people and find insight, inspiration, and knowledge from other people. And so that was something that really struck me. And so I realized, okay, how am I going to learn and improve myself, right? Personal development is something that is important to all of us. And so I said, okay, let me start collaborating with other people. Let me pick their minds, right? There's no monopoly on wisdom. There's no monopoly on knowledge. Everybody has a unique perspective, something that they can add. And trust me, even if you feel that you have nothing to add, I promise you, you're wrong. Everybody, you who are listening in the audience, you have something important to contribute. And so I went with that mentality that, hey, just by talking with great people, I'm going to learn so much and share that with the community. And so I started posting on LinkedIn many interviews, right? So I have had you on the show. I've had so many other great people on the show. And what I also focused on is, as I was developing my personal brand, by the way, this is another great piece of advice. Think what interesting, unique angle you can provide to your community, right? If we do something that everybody else is doing, that's okay. But it's not helpful to the community. There are other people who are already doing that. Two, it's not helpful to us, right? We don't stand out by doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. So what I realized is there was a bit of a white space, a bit of a gap in short form content. A lot of people have long form content, and that is great, right? There are many podcasts and interviews and so on that people do. Then with long form, you can go deep into a specific topic. But I said, why don't I do short form? And so I said, I'll do 2-minute interviews. And in 2 minutes now, you can't have a lot of questions in 2 minutes, maybe one question. And so I said, okay, what is the one question I can ask people? And so I started doing my show, Product Marketing Wisdom, where I invite great people and I ask one open-ended question. What is one nugget of wisdom that you would like to share? Because I know everybody has some wisdom that they can share. And many times I've had to help my guests discover that wisdom. Many times guests come with their own perspectives. And it's been amazing to see how much I have learned through the entire process, how much my guests appreciate it, how much my audience appreciates it. So it's a win-win-win. Everybody wins. And so that's really what's been the fuel and the wind beneath my wings to keep me going and continue to build my personal brand, Ivan.
Perfect. And that's why my podcast is called My Way, because it's about discovering your uniqueness and also finding your path. So I'm super happy to hear that you're also taking this approach and encouraging people to do so. How long did you plan before starting executing? Did you have any kind of imposter syndrome before starting? Did you have any concerns about what other people would think about what you're about to post?
Yeah, imposter syndrome is very real, Ivan. I think a lot of us are challenged with that, right? And it's part of the human condition. And so I would say to anyone out there who perhaps is also struggling with a little bit of imposter syndrome, right? Power through that. It is natural. Don't fight it, right? You have to flow with it and say that it's okay. It happens. And so, yes, absolutely. When I started off, whether you call it imposter syndrome or whether you call it, getting overwhelmed, it's like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Whether you call it, second thoughts and second guessing yourself, should I do it? Should I not? No, it's a stupid idea. Nobody will like it. So we always have, it's like those two voices, right? One voice says, yeah, you can do this. Then the other voice says, no, that is stupid. Don't do that. You're going to make a fool of yourself. So, we always have these voices that are talking to us. And so I had that dialogue and, in both my ears, like the good advice, bad advice, everything was coming in. But ultimately, we have to listen to our true voice. And I think we all will be blessed when we can recognize what is the true voice telling us, right? We also have advice from friends and family and other professionals, right? And some people may be supportive, some people may not be supportive. So I think imposter syndrome, the ability to cut through that noise, and when you're convinced that what you have to do is the right thing, sticking with it. So those are some of the skills that I learned. And yes, absolutely, I struggled with imposter syndrome. But what I realized is when we start doing something and we have the passion for it, the community is very supportive. Of course, there may be some people who, may be a little bit critical, but we have to focus on the positive. Rather than focusing on the negative, we focus on the positive. And people in the community are so supportive. And so we are all truly blessed. So if anyone out there has an idea and you're second guessing yourself, you have this imposter syndrome, or I don't know, maybe people won't believe me, I would say the easiest way to do something is to actually do it. Okay, just start doing it and you'll get feedback. Now, did everything I do initially, was that perfect 100%? No, absolutely not. But I found the things that worked, I doubled down on that. I found the things that maybe don't work so well. And I said, you know what, we don't need to do those things. And so like that, we have to iterate. And that is how we overcome imposter syndrome, Evan.
I think here also a bit of your product marketing genes are coming out, because you've made it very simple to explain the whole process. But I'm so happy that you shared the whole process from finding a gap in the market, understanding what's the solution to this market, then coming out with something that's, even if it's not perfect, it's good enough to be pushed out. Then trying to understand the customer needs, or as you said, the community needs, and then iterate in order to improve, and always continuing to capture feedback. So I think this is a process that maybe we oversimplified it, but I believe that if replicated and kept on doing in the same thing. And sorry, one other thing that I really liked about you is to sticking with something. So being patient and not expecting short-term results, but rather having faith that over time things are going to be compounding. So you've broken down, I think, very well, or lots of elements of a great model in order to start with an idea, then planning, executing, etc. Considering where you are today and looking back at your personal branding journey, is there anything that you would do differently today if you were to start out?
Oh, wow, that's a great question, Ivan. I think probably the only thing I would do differently is I would have started much earlier. And this is something that also is an important lesson. Sometimes we realize that something has been so successful for us. If only we had started that maybe years earlier, imagine how much even more successful we would be, right? And that is leading us to another important concept, Ivan, which is the concept of compounding. Compounding is a concept that a lot of us don't really appreciate. What is compounding? Compounding, it's like when you put money in a bank, right? And you earn interest on that money. And then you earn interest on the interest on that money. And then you earn interest on the interest on the interest, right? So if you put the same amount of money in a bank, right? If you put it, let's say, 1 year ago, think about if you put it 5 years ago, if you put it 10 years ago. Now it's going to accelerate, even though you have interest every year or every month, it's going to accelerate at a faster rate. And it becomes like a hockey stick, and it becomes steeper and steeper. So after 5 years, the money that is growing, it is growing at a much, much faster rate. And so your question, what would I have done differently? I've just been so humbled by the reception in the community. I wish I had started that even earlier so that I would have given more time for that compounding to take effect. So there you go.
Amazing. Thank you. Going back to your plan, you said you started with some short-term interviews, and I think interviews are very smart and are a great starting point, because it's much easier to have a conversation with someone rather than needing to be solo and then needing, much more preparation and so on. On the other side, when you're starting out, it might be challenging to have people, first to reach out to people, then to having people accept to be on your show. How was it like for you at the beginning, and is it any different now that your personal brand is stronger? And any tips that you might have for people who wanted to engage, not necessarily for a show, but also wanted to connect to some people they admire or they want to get in touch? Do you have any recommendation for this?
Definitely. If there are folks out there who, again, are hesitant, saying that, oh man, nobody knows me, so if I wanted to interview somebody, nobody will accept. Here's the advice that I would have. And it is the concept of trading up. And this is a concept that many people who are in sales and marketing, they understand well. In fact, they give it a different name. They call it the funnel, right? So if we reach out to 10 people, okay, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 may respond to that. And maybe out of that, you may get one interview. And initially, when we're starting out, when we don't have a big brand, we don't have a big name recognition, that ratio may be even worse in our favor, right? Maybe we have to reach out to 20 people to get one interview. So look at it as a funnel, look at it as a numbers game. Don't take it personally, right? If someone says either hey, sorry, I don't have time for this. Or if they ghost you, they don't even reply, right? It's easy to feel like, oh man, I'm useless, I'm a loser, it's easy to feel that way. But don't look at it that way. Look at it, look, it's a numbers game, okay? And you try to calculate how many people do you have to reach out to get one interview, right? Maybe it is 5 people, maybe it is 10 people, maybe it is 20 people, maybe it is 30 people initially if you have like no name recognition, right? And look at it as, hey, this is the hard work that you have to do up front, okay? Think of the compounding, right? Initially, the gains are going to be slow, and that's okay. But that is where we need grit. We need the ability to power through and stick with it, right? If we stick with it, then we see, hey, now it becomes easier. And I refer to the concept of trading up. What does trading up mean? Trading up means initially we get maybe other people who are not so famous and not so well known, but they are open to doing an interview. Okay, hey, let's do small interviews. Then when other people see that, slightly higher profile people are like, hey, sure, I'll do an interview with you. Okay, now you have maybe some medium level people. Then when more people see that, some superstars are willing to, hey, you know what? Sure, hey, why not? Yeah, I've seen you, before, and yeah, I like what you're doing. Yeah, sure, let's give it a shot. So that is the concept of trading up. You start with maybe people with maybe not so big a profile, then you're able to get people with medium profile, then you're able to get people with high profile, and then the superstars. And remember that curve, right? You have to stick with it so that initially it's a little bit slow. You have to keep doing it, and then you will find definitely that curve will accelerate if you keep doing your job well. And of course, you have to iterate, things that don't work well, you have to pivot and so on. So those are the things. So what I would say is for people who feel that maybe they aren't able to get other people, look at it as a numbers game. Think of it like a funnel and try to calculate how many people you have to reach out to get one interview. Keep doing that initially, and you will find that ratio will improve as long as you're consistently doing what you're doing.
Yeah, so true. And again, it comes down to patience, because expecting to have results overnight, it's unrealistic, and maybe it's also not deserved, I would say, because the more work you put into it, the better the output is going to be long term. Following up on this, Nitin, I was wondering, how do you balance, let's say, personal branding and your corporate identity? So if you're working at a company, some people might have the concern about building a personal brand because it might be not perceived well from a company or corporate identity. Ultimately, I think these are very rare cases. So I think in 99% of the cases, your manager and senior and executive leadership, they could only appreciate somebody who's taking more effort into building their soft skills, hard skills, network, and so on. But other than that, do you have any recommendations on how to approach building a personal brand in case you are already in a corporate environment?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ivan. And so here's what I would say. First, try to understand whether improving your personal brand and focusing time and energy on that is right for you, right? For some people, it is the right thing to do, but I would also say it is not the right thing for 100% of people, right? There are people where, the time and energy it takes to build your personal brand is maybe not the right decision, right? What are some people like that, right? If let's say people are a little bit more introverted, right? They don't like being in front of a camera or putting, blog articles or, putting their name out there. Or if one person has some negative feedback, or they're not able to take it, right? So there are people maybe a little bit sensitive. In that case, I would say maybe building your personal brand or at least dedicating a lot of time and energy towards that may not be the right decision. And there you mentioned the trade-off, right? Sometimes we have corporate responsibilities to the company, and then we have our, personal brand that we want to build. And so for many people who say that, look, I just want some predictability. I don't like the uncertainty of what's going to happen, right? And if your company is not very much enthused about what you're doing on this personal brand, and if it is taking a lot of time, and if it is, let's say, compromising the quality that you're delivering for your company, for some people, it may be the right decision to focus on the company, and maybe the personal brand is not worth jeopardizing what you have with the company if the company is not okay with that. So that's one thing I'll say. Second thing I'll say is there are many companies who are very open-minded. In fact, they like when their employees are building their personal brand, because then once in a while, the employee can talk about the company. And that is very well received by the community, especially if the audience of that employee, the personal brand that the employee is building, it fits with the ideal customer profile of the company, right? In that case, it's a great thing. Like, I think all companies should be like, in that case, man, please go ahead, build your brand, because once in a while you may comment on, what we post, hey, we got this award or we won this customer, you post, and then now all your followers are going to see that. And so I think that is a way that many companies are looking at this as actually it's a win-win. It's a good thing for the employee to build their personal brand, and it definitely is a good thing for the company to have an employee almost like a spokesperson and like a superstar who is able to bring, a lot of followers and maybe some deals. And then there are other cases where building one's personal brand is part of the job description. So for a lot of people in marketing, right, they may have to be public speakers. They may have to go to trade shows, conferences, webinars, and, do all that. And so by kind of building your personal brand and practicing that, you're improving your skills to be able to deliver for your organization. So in that case, definitely, it's like not either or, it's like, yes, one and two, right? Do good for your company and do well for your personal brand. So those, I would say, are the three scenarios. So what we discussed, Ivan, is one, for some people, focusing the time and energy on building your personal brand may not be the best decision. It may be best to just focus on the company, and especially if you're maybe not, wanting to put yourself out there every day and so on, maybe don't focus on the personal brand. Second is, your personal brand may actually help the company when you're able to bring in audience and more followers to maybe their company's page. Third is, your personal brand may be part of your job description. So those, I would say, are the three ways to look at it, Ivan.
Perfect. And for people that are just starting out with their personal brand, they maybe don't have a lot of time, they don't have a lot of courage and also expertise. What would you recommend as the first steps, not only in terms of publishing content, but how do you understand what you want to talk about? What's your unique positioning? What kind of additional value, as you said, can you bring to the table, to the discussion? What would you say are the first and key steps in order to start approaching that before you even consider posting or sharing your ideas and thoughts?
Yeah, and for each one, Ivan, the answer will be different, but I'll try to give a kind of a template that hopefully a lot of people can benefit from. And the template I would suggest is to have an abundance mindset, right? Let's have the mindset that all of us are special. All of us are gifted with certain unique qualities, right? We have to discover what those qualities are. And also, the abundance mindset says that the glass is half full. The community generally is very supportive. And here's another very interesting phenomenon. In the age of AI, people crave authenticity, right? People are not sure what is real, what is artificial. And so when we are authentic, that is something that people really appreciate. So here's a couple of actionable ways that people can implement that. If you're not sure where to start, try posting one highlight from the past week, from the past 7 days, right? It could be a professional highlight. Maybe you had an awesome customer meeting and you were really anxious about how the presentation was going to go, but your customer gave you great feedback and you were blown away by that. Maybe it's a personal thing, right? Where maybe you are now we're entering into the New Year season. Maybe people have some fitness goals and maybe people are trying to do some dieting and, it's difficult, but people found that, man, I was able to really stick with my diet for the past 7 days and, things like that. So either a professional highlight or a personal highlight, try to find from the past 7 days or so and post your thoughts in a kind of a genuine way, right? Hey, I was very anxious. I was very concerned, but you know what? This actually worked out well and I'm very thankful. And I will try to, keep this momentum going in 2025, something like that. So that way, it is something that you're sharing that is positive. People will really appreciate. It is authentic, right? It is a story that you have. No one else can share that. I mean, it happened to you. It didn't happen to anyone else. And this way, when you share that, you will find that the community is going to be so supportive, right? It is a genuine, authentic story that you're sharing and no one else can share. So that is one way I would recommend that anyone who is not sure how to start doing that, right? And when you find that the community is so supportive, then it'll give you the confidence to do more. Maybe the next week you have another highlight, either professional or personal, and you keep posting like that. If you are really bold, you can even post a low light, something that perhaps was very disappointing, that made you very sad, this week. And by the way, when you post these things, don't put like customer names and things like that. Like, anonymize it. So, it's okay to post. But yeah, you can post a highlight. If you're really bold, you can even post a low light. And, many people appreciate that because I think many people are sick and tired of seeing like in their feed, everything, oh, this is awesome, that is awesome, life is not all awesome, okay? Yes, some things are awesome, some things are painful, some things are disappointing and crushing. And so, you can also post maybe a low light. Hey, you know what? This is something that got me really down this week. And again, the community largely is going to be so supportive and people are going to give you so much support that you're actually going to feel better. And so those are, anyway, a couple of ideas that people can get started with.
I like it because they're very actionable. And now that we've discussed what are the first baby steps, I'm curious to hear your experience about the choice of the channel. For instance, I know that you're very active on LinkedIn, and I assume that this is your preferred channel that you're using for communication. And I might be wrong, I'm just not aware about, other channels that you're leveraging. But I'm curious to hear your experience in how did you choose the channel or the channels that you want to use? And also, how did you learn about how to play the game of this channel?
Yeah, it's a great question. Nowadays with technology, there are so many different channels and so many different platforms that are out there. And so here's how I went through it. And, hopefully this will be helpful to the audience as well. I went through using my product marketing skills and strategy. Who is my target audience I want to build my brand with? And I realized that I want to build my brand with professionals, right? My son, he watches a lot of YouTube. And there's a lot of, questionable content that's out there on YouTube. Now, they may have a different audience, okay? And so, they're putting out content that is maybe sensational or entertaining or shocking, or, something. Okay, you know what? That's their strategy. My strategy is not like that. I don't want to be sensational or shocking or outrageous or something like that, right? I want to post things that help professionals. And so when I look at the different platforms, YouTube, there are some professionals there, but, it's everybody. There's TikTok, there's Facebook, Instagram. LinkedIn is almost exclusively professionals. The people who don't use LinkedIn a lot are generally people who are not like, corporate or like, business type people, right? They may be entertainers, artists, other people like that. And they are not my ideal customer profile, right? So for me, first I realized that my ideal customer profile, I want to focus on professionals. And so the professional network is LinkedIn. I also post on YouTube mainly because of the search engine optimization, SEO benefits that are offered, because YouTube, of course, is part of Google. So any text that you have in your video is automatically kind of searchable. So when people search things, YouTube videos also show up in a Google search. And so those are really the two platforms I post on. Most of the engagement and the impressions and all that happens on LinkedIn. YouTube, I mainly have that for the ability to search. So if you search different things, some of my videos may show up on YouTube. Another thing to keep in mind is whenever you choose a platform and every additional platform, it takes time and resources to maintain that, right? You have to post on that platform. You have to react, when other people react or comment, you got to, go back to that. So you also want to budget your time, right? You don't want to say, oh, there's that platform. Oh, there's that platform. Oh, there's that platform. Before you know it, like all your time is just going to be spent on maybe, a dozen different platforms. So I said, look, we all have 24 hours in the day and we have two hands, two legs. So what do I want to focus on? So again, my primary is LinkedIn because it's professionals. So that's really where a lot of my time and resources are spent. And then YouTube, it's minimal effort. I don't do much other than, just post it there and just leave it. But I've already seen the benefits of SEO working through YouTube. So that's how I chose my channels. For people out there, if you're targeting professionals, definitely LinkedIn, I would highly recommend. If you're targeting other kinds of people, maybe more artistic people or maybe people who are work at home and, they want like a side hustle, things like that, YouTube may be good. TikTok, we'll see, what happens with the TikTok ban. But, TikTok could be another interesting platform. So do your research and then try it, right? The other challenge is sometimes we get analysis paralysis. We're like, oh, we have 27 different platforms. And by the time we analyze everything, it's been like 3 months. Instead of like picking a platform and like doing something. So have a bias for action, pick a platform. If you're targeting professionals, go with LinkedIn and pick a platform and just do it. Just do it.
Beautiful. I'm sure since you're a product marketer, you're also a data-driven person. So when it comes to doing your analysis on those platforms such as LinkedIn, YouTube, how much do you give weight to data and KPIs versus just posting and throwing out content without caring too much about the vanity metrics, etc.? I'm just curious how you see it, because for the moment, I'm just starting. I'm at the beginning of the journey, but I've decided for a certain amount of time, maybe 6 to 12 months, I'm not going to care about any kind of likes, shares, comments, etc., because I'm using it as a playground in order to build my skills, in order to understand the processes, and in order to learn how to create quality content. And in this process, I don't want to be negatively impacted by low metrics such as I said, likes, etc. But most of the people, they do recommend that you cannot improve what you cannot measure, to start right from the beginning, understanding your data. What's your approach there? And what are your thoughts about data versus, content itself or information?
Yeah, there's a great wisdom in what you mentioned, Ivan, which is to stay the course, right? And not get distracted by some noise that comes in. Oh my God, what happened here? Oh, what happened here, right? So there is some wisdom in that. But I think that ultimately the data serves us. We don't serve the data, right? We're not slaves to the data. The data is our slave. And so I would say what we should think about is, while, don't get too moved by the data, watch the data. I'll tell you what I do, right? So once a week, I pull my LinkedIn metrics, which is my main platform, and LinkedIn gives you a lot of good data in like a spreadsheet form. So, I actually plot graphs on that to see, how things are tracking. And I don't unnecessarily focus on this was a good week or this was a bad week, right? I focus on what are the long-term trends. And I do this in Excel. You can even plot like a trend line with a forecast of, how things are moving. So let's say 6 months, 9 months, 12 months from now, how things are going to look. And I see that, look, is that something that I'm comfortable with? And I also look at certain posts, for example, are getting a lot more engagement than certain other posts. So I try to compare, okay, so what was unique about this post, perhaps that this post didn't have? One thing, for example, is if you're interviewing a great guest, I see that you've had Harvey Lee and some amazing people as guests on, right? It's important to tag them in the post, right? So even if you put like a clip of some of these people, it's important to tag them. And so their audience also sees, hey, Harvey was tagged in this post. And so this way, and this also means that you need to understand the algorithm a little bit. Now, we will never fully master the LinkedIn algorithm. And by the way, that thing can change, right? So don't spend too much time trying to analyze the algorithm, but think about what were the creators of LinkedIn, how are they thinking, right? They want, let's say if you and I are having an interview, right? If you tag me, my followers would like to know that, hey, Nitin had an interview with Ivan, and let me go check it out. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, that's their choice. But if you don't tag me, if you just write my name, then it's not going to automatically generate impressions with my followers, right? So some basic things like that I learned. Initially, I wasn't doing this right. So anyway, this is after making my mistakes. So that's why I'm teaching people that, these are some of the things that I've learned. So when we have other people that we collaborate with, we want to tag them. And we also want to think, when we, let's say, interview people, are they going to be helpful to our target audience, right? So initially, one mistake that I made was I was not really targeting my guests very well. Again, because I was smaller, anyone who wanted to have an interview with me, hey, sure, let's go. And look, when you're starting off, maybe that's fine. But then as you grow, you're able to become a little more targeted. So then you can say, hey, you know what? Maybe this kind of a person is not ideal for my audience. This kind of a person may be a better suit. And so when you target and provide some better quality people, your audience also tends to resonate with that. One thing in LinkedIn, for example, is you can see among your followers the breakout of job title. You can even see kind of the companies, that they work at, the locations, are they in Europe, in Germany, are they in US, where they are. So, so I spend a lot of time looking through that data, but that's my style. I'm a little bit more data driven. Unfortunately, I'm not as creative as maybe some other people out there. So while I'm sharing what worked for me, that doesn't necessarily mean it works for you. If you're a more creative person, maybe you have a different style, but this is anyway what worked for me.
All right, appreciate it. Let's get to the next chapter of your brand. And I don't want to spoil anything because I want it to come from you. But you've decided to take your branding to another level by writing a book. Before getting into any of these details, was this something you had already in mind when you started working on your personal brand? Or is it something that you thought about later on in the process? And what was it like?
Yeah, it was not something I had planned from day one, much as it seems like, this was some big master plan. So I'll tell you, what happened, Ivan, was a lot of people really liked my shows, but they may not catch it every day. I put these shows out almost every day. And so people are like, you know what? I like your shows, but I wish there was like one place I could, get the benefit of these shows. I don't like watch these things every day. And some people actually don't even like video that much. So they were like, is there a place like I can kind of read about this? Because I love the wisdom, but I'm just not like a video person. So I said, okay, how can I solve that challenge? Then I said, man, I should put this in a book, because then it's like a bunch of interviews, over 100 interviews in my book, Product Marketing Wisdom. There's over 100 interviews in there, and it is in written form, right? So if people don't like video, you can sit and read. And of course, you don't have to read it all at once. You can do maybe 1-2 interviews a day. So you can do it at your own pace. And it's essentially one place, right? If you, let's say people are also not so active on LinkedIn, but they like the content, right? So those were the challenges that I heard from my community and I was looking to solve. So then I said, okay, you know what? I need to provide this in a book so that even more people can benefit. And then I started really in earnest in October of 2024. And that's when I said, you know what? My audience is telling me they want this, and so I need to do a book. I had never written a book before. This was my first book. So I had to learn so much. The good news is with modern technology, it is a lot easier to publish your book than maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15 years ago, right? There, publishing the book was the hard part. It's almost like writing the book was easy, publishing is the hard part. Now, the publishing is almost the easy part. There's all this technology and services and all that are available. Writing the book, and then, of course, promoting the book, those are the hard parts, right? What to write. Because, I mean, a lot of people have written about a lot of things, right? So you need a slightly unique angle. So in my case, in Product Marketing Wisdom, it was essentially, I took 100 different interviews and I categorized them into different themes. So market and competitive research, sales enablement, KPIs, personal development, AI, so I put them in different chapters and I wrote about them, including the key takeaways. So here's what we learned from the interview. I also, in the beginning, have my own take. Hey, this is my take on product marketing, on all these different themes. And then I also have Hila Lauterbach, who was so nice to write a guest chapter in my book. So for folks out there, this is going to be an awesome resource. And so that's really how I got started. So in October, I said, I got to do this. And, here we're recording this right now in January, and it's been 3 months, and it's just been humbling. It's already become an Amazon bestseller, and it couldn't have happened without the community. So this is why I say, if we have seen far, it is because we stand on the shoulders of giants. So never underestimate the power of your community, and don't underestimate the power of compounding. Start small and stay with it. And, magic is going to happen.
I think you highlighted a couple of things that I believe are super important. So the first one, as you said, is that you haven't thought about it at the beginning. So working on personal branding and on yourself, it opened up new opportunities. Then you also mentioned that you identified another need. Basically, the video format was not the only one that your audience was consuming. So by implementing one additional format, you extended the reach. And also by having a different channel, such as Amazon in this case, or other publishing channels, this can help you increase the reach of your audience. And all of this happened in 2 months or so. So basically in 2 months, you were able to go from ideas to Amazon best-selling book.
Yes, and it's really been humbling. What I would say is, look, the takeaway is not that, this is some amazing success that this guy had that'll never happen to me. Dreams do come true, right? As long as we are able to have that passion and work hard, dreams do come true. And so what I would say to people out there who think that, man, I'll never write a book, I'll never, do a podcast, I'll never, build my personal brand, is it's always easy to criticize and get into that negative talk and get down and not do anything. But take that first step, right? And say, hey, I'm going to maybe do a post about a highlight from my week. Maybe I'm going to write a blog article. There are great platforms out there, by the way, even free platforms where you can write blogs and you can build a newsletter. Right? So maybe that's your thing. Maybe it's not video interviews. Maybe it's writing blog articles. And nowadays, of course, there are tools and technology like AI that can help you. Right? So don't think that, oh, I have to write this whole thing myself. Use technology and use that to help you. And whatever your dream is, maybe your dream is writing a book. Maybe your dream is, to be a podcast host. Maybe your dream is to be a blogger. Maybe your dream is, to do other things, maybe do some training and coaching and consulting or anything, right? So whatever it is. And another thing I think we haven't touched on so much is to reach out to the community. Let's say you have an idea, you want to do this, and you're not sure how to get started. Reach out to some friends on LinkedIn and say, hey, you know what? Can we have a virtual coffee chat? I want to get your ideas. I'm thinking about something. I don't know if it's a good idea. Let's talk for 15 minutes. I'm sure a lot of people, right? Your friends will be willing to say, sure, man, let's take 15 minutes. Let's have a virtual coffee chat. Tell me what's on your mind. How can I help you? And that's another way, like reach out to your people and you'll be blown away by the support that you get.
I think you're right on this. And I noticed something unusual, and I'm curious to hear your take on this when you talk about your community. So when I think about big book launches, I see a lot of different people promoting the book, but then it makes sense because somebody has a very strong brand, maybe has written several books, so it feels sort of natural. In your case online, I saw lots of people promoting your book, which made me think in so many different ways. And you're right that having the support of the community is crucial in order to achieving success. In your case, how did you get there?
Yeah. And yes, so that's another thing that, worked out very, very well in the favor of my book. And what I realized is when I write this book, it's not just a celebration of me. It is a celebration of the 100+ people who are featured in my book. It is not just my book. Actually, it's all of our book, 100+ people who have been featured in the book. And so I said, how can I help them celebrate that? Everybody wants to, be proud of something, right? Hey, look what I did. So I said, I'm not just going to post myself. I made cards, like graphics, for over 100 different people saying, hey, guess what? I'm featured in this new book. And I put their picture, I put a picture of the book, and I sent it to them. I said, hey, I made this card for you. If you like, you can share this on LinkedIn and to celebrate, this new book that we built together. And people loved it. And, they were so excited to share it. And so that taught me another important lesson, right? When we help others, we are helping ourselves, right? Sometimes we get into kind of the selfish mindset where how can we do this for me, right? And look, that's okay. But let's think, how can we help others? And so this was actually a way that I thought I could not just celebrate the book for me, but for the 100+ people who are featured in the book. It took a lot of work, right? I had to create 100 different graphics and put their pictures and all that. But I was like, hey, this is the least I can do. They were nice enough to allow me to use their interview that we did in my book. The least I can do is to help make them be proud of what they've accomplished. And so I created those 100 different cards. I sent it to 100 different people, and I think almost all of them have posted that. And, that's been great for them, right? Because now they're immortalized in print. Now they're in my book, and, they can go into Amazon or different bookstores and get this. But of course, it also helps me with getting more eyeballs to understand that, I've written the book. So when we help other people, it also helps us.
That's great. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk with you is that I know lots about, people that you interview and talk to, but actually I don't know much about you. And maybe lots of people don't know a lot about you because you do tend to ask questions to people and also learn more about them without, as you said, putting the spotlight on you. So I think it was a great opportunity today to explore more about you and also for your audience to learn what you're doing, why you're doing it, and also what's possible once you put in the work. So first of all, thank you for that, Nitin.
Absolutely.
I'm curious to hear, how did your perception of product marketing change now after this book has been published?
It's an always evolving field. Product marketing, first of all, many people may not know what exactly is product marketing. Some people are experts, some people are new to product marketing. Product marketing is the science of connecting product potential with market need. Okay. So this can apply whether you're an entrepreneur, a startup, you're coming up with a new tech product. Maybe you're a baker and you're trying to figure out the next pastries and cookies and things that you want to make. Maybe you're a toy maker and you're trying to think what toys you want to bring to market, right? Product marketing is helping almost any business, and it involves everything from competitive analysis, market research, and then, you got to do the sales enablement, help your salespeople sell that, and you have to improve yourself, personal development. So that's all, product marketing. And so for me, what I learned by my journey of doing this book is a lot of the theory of product marketing is maybe working in theory, but we need to understand how that works in practice, right? Theory is okay, what we are taught in the classroom and in courses and all that. But if that is not applied, then really what good is that theory? And so that is what it taught me, that we need to learn not just from books and courses and theory and so on. We need to learn from actual practitioners. And that's the thing that is probably my biggest takeaway, that when we actually do these things and hear from people who have actually done them, it gives us a whole new appreciation of how that can really help us, perhaps in our business, in our job, in whatever project we're involved with.
That's a great insight. I can see it also related to myself when I started working and taking a lot of courses and then trying to put it in practice and saying, man, this is not working. I'm wondering why, because I have the framework, I know what to do, but it's simply not working. While with somebody with experience walks you through, what have been they done, what worked and what didn't, then it makes much more sense and it's much more applicable in the concrete world. Nitin, going to the end of the conversation, being mindful of the time. So you started with these interviews, which evolved into a book. Do you know already if you have or if you see what's the next step within your journey?
Yes, I have 100 different ideas now. The reception from the book has already been amazing, and I'm very, very fortunate. I'm very thankful to my community, without which really this wouldn't have been possible. So some of the things that I'm planning is I'm planning to bring even more books out, right? I'm continuing to do interviews. There are many people who I've interviewed who have not yet been featured in my first volume of my book. So I'm already planning a volume 2 and maybe a volume 3 and volume 4 to have all the people who I've interviewed who have not yet been featured, including you, Ivan. So I would love to have you in my next volume of my book. So that's one thing that I'm working on. I'm also working on some other secret projects that I'm not ready to share yet, but I'm super, super excited. So to the audience, I would say stay tuned. And over the coming weeks, you'll see some of the great things that are coming.
Perfect. Nitin, where can people find you? I just want to make sure if they want to connect with you or reach out, what's the best way to do so?
Yes, nowadays I think LinkedIn is the best way to reach anyone in the professional community. So search for me, Nitin Karthik, Nitin Kartik. I'm the guy with the car emoji next to my name, so that's how you know it's me. And do check out my book. It's an Amazon bestseller, Product Marketing Wisdom. For convenience, I've put it at productmarketingwisdom.com. So just go visit productmarketingwisdom.com and you'll be able to see my book. And, send me a direct message if you want to have a virtual coffee with me. Happy to do that. And if you're struggling with some of the things that I've struggled with, and if you feel that my advice can help you, I'll be so happy and honored to help you in your journey.
Nitin, first of all, thank you so much. This conversation has been great. I've learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to see what are the top secret projects you're going to be working on and pushing out in the future.
It's going to be amazing. One way that I end my book is the future is even better than the past. And that is something that I firmly believe in. And the best is yet to come. So for folks out there, always remember that the best is yet to come. And so it's been an honor. It's been an amazing discussion, Ivan. Thank you so much. And can't wait to have even more of these discussions with you.
Perfect. Looking forward to it. Thank you again, and bye-bye.